Hello and welcome to Ibby's Digital Nomad Stories, featuring real conversations with professionals who've cracked the code to sustainable nomadic lifestyles. These people aren't beach and Wi Fi chasers, they're building competitive advantages that traditional employment could never match. Global mobility, income diversification, and the freedom to capitalize on opportunities anywhere. I'm Ibi Malik, your favorite digital nomad consultant, and today I'm joined on the show by Kristen Womble, someone who proved you don't have to choose between the freedom of travel and the grounding of home. See, for years, she lived divided. There was travel Kristen and there was US Kristen, and they never quite fit together. She hid her travels from people back home because she didn't want to be that annoying, study abroad, traveling cliché person. But the more she hid, the more divided she felt. Until one day she stopped. She decided to be brutally honest to everyone about who she was, and the division in herself started to heal. Now she's a writing coach who spends about half the year traveling and seeing the world, and the other half home in DC with Sunday family dinners and a weekly soccer team, a home base that she maintains purely for her personal life satisfaction. This is freedom of choice, exercised in the most beautiful way. This is a masterclass in integration. When you stop hiding parts of who you are, you can get to keep all of it. Here's Kristen. Hi, Kristen.
Hi, Ibby.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. How long have you been a nomad?
I started in 2022, nomading.
I see. All right.
Yeah.
And are you full-time nomading?
Not anymore. Now I have a home base and I only travel. I thought it would be like a quarter of the time, but really it's at least a third or half of the time.
Fair enough. And for the rest of the time that you're not traveling, do you have a home?
I do. I have a home base in DC.
In Washington, D.C.?
Washington, D.C.
Where the president lives?
Unfortunately. Wow. Yeah.
Is it really political there?
It's very political in central DC, but I am not in central DC, luckily. I'm in the metro system, but I'm far enough out that I do feel I'm a bit removed from all the craziness. Like if the National Guard is there, I hear about it on the news. I don't see it.
You don't see it?
Yeah, until I go central.
Do you have a pickup truck?
No.
Why?
I don't need to move anything.
I feel like all Americans have a pickup truck.
It's crazy. Actually, it annoys me because as part of my my apartment complex, we get a space in a parking garage, and there are these massive trucks in the garage as well. And I'm like, okay, but we're still the city, and the garage just isn't really like made for them. So if you park next to them, it's hard to like get in and out of your space, and so it surprises me. Americans, for the most part, I feel like city dwellers have city cars, but there are like still quite a few trucks even in the city. But yeah, if you go out, everyone has a pickup truck.
I really want a pickup truck.
Yeah, honestly, they're nice, to have. I think they're definitely worth it as a second car. But you don't necessarily want to go road tripping in a pickup truck either.
This is true.
Yeah. It's just, with Americans, like I think with the US being so large and you're carrying things long distances and, having so much outdoor space to go camping and things like that, like pickup trucks are really nice.
Pickup trucks are the ones.
Yeah.
Well, maybe in another life, I could consider a pickup truck. I could be like me and my pickup truck.
Yes.
I'll name it Little Ibby or Big Ibby.
Big Ibby.
Big Ibby. Damn.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a writer.
Yes.
And a writing consultant.
Yes.
Okay. And those two things are in your head connected or disconnected?
To me, they're very connected.
Why?
I think you have to understand the people that you're trying to consult if you're going to be good at it or if you're going to help them. So I think you have to have faced or be currently facing a lot of the similar problems.
In order to connect with them?
Yeah. And in order to give the individualized feedback that you need to.
And do the problems change over time? Like, is it the same kind of problems that people encountered 5 years ago that they're encountering today? Or is it new challenges for every new writing generation?
It's a good question. I think a lot of them are the same. I think writing itself is very evergreen when you're generating it from your experiences and things like that. I think the biggest change, of course, is AI. I get a lot of questions about writers who are concerned about finding their place in the world of AI, and that can be like a entire book in and of itself. But for people who just want to develop the skill of writing and who want to write their own books like completely from scratch, the problems are very similar across generations. They're not necessarily the same across where the writer is in their journey. You know, like someone who's just starting to write or putting out their debut book is going to have very different questions from someone who's already like 5 books in.
Interesting. And how many books in are you?
I'm no books in.
So you haven't published?
Not yet.
Why?
I've been just so focused on the consulting part, you know, because that's what really drives me, is helping people. Because as much as I love to write, what I love more is helping other people to live creative lives and to sort of overcome a lot of misbeliefs that society puts on us, that like you can't make a living as a full-time writer or things like that. I feel like that's my larger purpose now, is to not necessarily write, well, to show people it can be done when I do it myself, but to also bring a lot of people with me as I do it. Yeah. And I'm also only 30. So it's like there's only so much you can do at a time. So I'm starting with this.
This is true. We can't do everything.
No. And everyone's on their own, you know, timeline. And sometimes you want to dedicate a year to this and then take a break and, you know, dedicate a year to something else. So I tend to jump around quite a bit.
That makes sense. Okay. I like this. Let's explore it a bit. Because it reminds me a little bit of my work, because I'm a consultant.
Yeah.
And primarily in a tech-related field. And I really do, even though I'm not that technical and I don't fully understand the ins and outs of tech, which is a very big word, like tech, I still like to go back to basics sometimes.
Yes.
You know, go ground zero coding and just remind myself of what the people are actually doing that I'm consulting on. But again, I'm not technical. So, you know, I understand that. What does it mean to be a consultant to you?
Well, the way I call myself is a writing coach and then an editor and a publishing consultant. So for me, the consultancy is really about the strategy of it, or to take a lot of the information that's out there and make it accessible to someone, or to break it down into chunks that are most relevant to them, you know, because like I wrote an entire master's thesis on like publishing business models. So like what I consult on when people want to publish is like which publishing route they should take and things like that. And, you know, they don't want to and they don't need to write an entire master's thesis themselves, or even, you know, necessarily learn as in depth about the publishing models. They just need enough information to make a confident choice. Yeah. And feel like they understand what's best for them. So for consultancy, I feel like I've done the gathering and the learning of the information, and I'm just like passing it along in a way that works for them.
Interesting. And what does it mean for you in terms of, like, what is the target you're trying to get to your client to? Is it, Are you trying to get them into a certain model, a certain best practice framework? Are you trying to just help them take the next step? Are you trying to empower them? Like, what is that success to the client for you?
Yeah. I think if I had to assign one to every client, I would say the target is definitely empowerment and making them feel confident in their business and creative decisions. But it changes for each client. Some come to me already knowing that they want to be published traditionally. Some come to me already knowing that they want to be self-published. And then, of course, we take it a step down from that and work toward their goals and how to get there. Some come to me for the writing coaching, like they just say, hey, I just want to finish this book and I'm stuck. So I think a lot of times the clients already come with their targets in mind and I help them get there. But as far as my target, it really is empowerment.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And especially because I do such different things with each client. Like some it's writing coaching, some it's just editing. They just want me to take a developmental look at their manuscript and then they're done, you know, and that's fine too.
Yeah. I get it. I get it. I personally really believe in consulting. I think consulting is it's a nice place to be. It's a very rewarding place to help people through.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a part of a machine that still needs to be there. And for me, one of the most validating things that happened was actually when I met a personal trainer who told me he always hires a personal trainer.
Yes.
And I was like, why? And he said, because I know I can do the movements, get the bicep curls in, but if I'm training for a competition, I want someone from a third-party perspective who also knows what they're doing to just help me through, right? And to take the next step with me.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
And even writing coaches have coaches and book coaches have book coaches. Same thing.
Exactly. So let's talk a bit more nomadically.
Yes.
So I want to know why you travel and why you don't just spend the whole time in DC. Or alternatively, why you even go to DC at all and you don't just travel all the time.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm trying to think back to the beginning.
When is the beginning?
I'd say the beginning for me is actually 17, 18, because I've kind of considered myself looking back, I think I consider myself location independent since then.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, it's just because I went to university out of state. I went quite far away for the States. It was like 16 hours driving from my hometown to my college town.
So not a commute.
Not a commute. So it was like I lived there during the school year, and then I lived back in Albuquerque during the summers. So I very much had, I don't know which one was my home base at that point. You know, I was traveling between the two constantly, especially for holidays and things like that. And I very much wanted to see something else. And I think that that's what it comes down for me, is just a curiosity as far as, okay, well, what else is out there, you know? And that's why I continue to travel so much. As far as why I go back to DC, you know, I was a few years into my nomading, my full-time digital nomading, and the things that I missed were just starting to pile up in a way that I wanted to change, you know?
Such as?
Well, having a community that you get to see on a regular basis is one time, because of course there's a large digital nomad community, but we're all traveling, you know. We don't have so many like activity based communities, you know, like in Alexandria, I get to have a soccer team that I see 3 times a week. And that's not something that I could get when I'm traveling. You know, I get to have family dinner with my brother and sister-in-law and my nephew every Sunday. And that's not something that I would get traveling either. So there's always a trade-off.
Mm.
And I think that the reason I have a home base, but I still travel as much as I do, is because I'm trying to find a way to minimize those trade-offs, you know?
That makes sense. Do you feel like your life is in two halves? Like, do you feel they're connected, or do you feel like when you're at home in DC, you're one person, and when you're traveling, you're a different?
Mm-hmm. I feel like they're very connected. I don't necessarily think that I have like a home-based persona or a traveling persona. I think that certainly different qualities of mine come out in each way, depending on the environment. Like when you have a home base, I think I take advantage of the relaxation that I can have. Whereas when I'm traveling, maybe I am a bit more adventurous. But I do think it's all the same Kristen. And another thing I do though is I try to communicate it as much as possible. You know, like there was a time where I didn't want to talk about my travels because it always brought a lot of questions and it put me in the spotlight a lot, especially with people who don't travel and they don't necessarily understand. You know, some people ask questions from a place of curiosity and wanting to understand, and some people ask questions from, let's just say, a less nice place, right? And so I didn't like that sort of attention. But then it's like you said, when I was doing that, I very much like felt divided. I felt like, okay, when I was home, I was very much trying to be, you know, like the rest of Americans who stay in one place, you know, and are happy to stay in one place. But once I started talking about it more, that changed and I prefer it that way. Because before it was siloed, like you said, there was a travel Kristen and there was like a US Kristen, you know. And now I just try to be more of a, I mean, I'm still American, but much more of a global citizen. And I try to live a bit more transparently with like the people who know me.
Was it difficult for you to lean into that merging of the personalities, or the, not personalities, but those two people?
Yeah, I think so. Because also I think when you start traveling quite young, then you have, I don't know, if you have negative experiences with that and you're a young age, that's like what you hold on to. So for me, it was when I was in college and I studied abroad. I was like 20 or something. That was like my second out of country trip, but it was like the biggest one. And I came back and there were all these memes and jokes about how no one wanted to hear from like the person who had studied abroad, or that, you know, sort of poking fun at the person who had studied abroad because they couldn't like stop talking about it, you know? And
I went to France and I studied this.
Yeah, exactly. Or like in France, we did this, like, you know, and I thought it sucked, honestly, because like coming from the other side of it, I was like, well, people just want to share their experiences. Like just because it's in a different country though, like there was this negative stigma attached to it. Whereas like everybody would love to hear what I did over the summer in Albuquerque, New Mexico, right? But like a semester in France suddenly wasn't okay. And so having to navigate that when I was 20, I think left an impact as far as then how long it took me to, you know, to lean into, you know, showing my full self no matter where I was or who I was with.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, there's people everywhere who like generally did want to hear about it and didn't poke fun that way. But like I was getting it from people in my immediate circle and I was getting it from the internet, right?
It's like 2 in 1.
Yeah.
It's a common struggle that I think a lot of perpetual travelers face, that when they go back to the normal places, then they've become so far removed from the normal people's reality.
Yeah.
that not only is it hard for them to communicate one way, it's hard for those people to communicate back.
And I think it's different when maybe you naturally have a thick skin, or when you're old enough to have a thicker skin about it. But, when you're 20 and you can't communicate with your friends, it's hard.
Was there a tipping point where you thought, did it just naturally happen that you just started communicating more? Was there a point where you said, you know what, I'm going to lose touch with these people if I don't change something, or vice versa?
I don't remember there being a tipping point, but it's not something I thought of before. So in this case, I would just say that I think I just grew up. I think it was just a process of growing up and caring less about what people thought of me, caring less about keeping people in my life who I couldn't communicate or understand. Because that's another thing, is you get to be a lot more selective when you're grown up. You don't have friendships that are based on proximity or convenience or things like that. So I think as that started to change as well, I started to change.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Were there other things? Like, let's talk about age. Let's talk about... So you've been location independent for, 12 years now?
Yeah.
Or so, right? It's a long time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who... people go down different paths, right? They might be established in their careers, and then COVID happened and they suddenly became location independent, or they might have sought it from a young age,
Yeah.
How do you find the role that age played in your location independent journey?
Overall, I'm glad I started as young as I did. I think I saved myself from a lot of, being stuck in a rut, always wanting to travel and then never doing it, or never knowing how to do it. I feel like once I started young and I was able to do it in the structured way, which was studying abroad, then it made it easier to learn how to do it for myself in an unstructured way without thinking it was difficult or thinking it was hard, because when we're young, like I said, we have thinner skin, but I think we're also very resilient and we're a bit more adventurous and willing to try something new. Versus if I had been in corporate for 20 years already and that's all I knew, and I had just built day after day on the same thing, I think it would have been difficult to change that.
Okay, so I get that. So at the beginning, it's nice to be starting young and to go down the structured path. Structured path, like schooling and that kind of exchange programs and this kind of stuff?
Yeah, that was very nice for me because it was I was able to do a lot of the process through my school. I had people to help me figure out the requirements. I went over there and I wasn't alone because I was at least in a mirrored environment of university. There was still the culture shock. But there were other international students. I had an international advisor, a French advisor. So I wasn't isolated like I think I would have been if I had just done it alone. If I had just started digital nomading, if I didn't have that previous experience and I had started as I did in 2022, just alone, I think the isolation would have just been so much more magnified. If that had been my first time.
What was the first time you were unstructured?
The first time I was completely unstructured, I think, was 2022, because before that had been maybe traveling on some service trips and then the study abroad. And then I did my master's in London. So again, a schooling environment where there were lots of people around. So I think the first time I did it unstructured was I spent 3 months again alone in London. Not completely alone because you kind of know people, but that was my first digital nomading stint. And I did set boundaries for myself to make it easier. I was like, okay, I'm going to first go to a country that I've been to before. I'm going to go to a country that speaks the same language.
Yeah.
Because I knew that this would be hard,
Yeah.
in some way. So I took steps to make it easier for myself. And then once I had done that, I very much got this feeling that, okay, I could do this forever.
I can keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is great.
It's like you break on the ice, right? Like after that.
Yeah, you start, I don't know, you just start doing it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So there was this period of 7 or so years where you were in the structured world, or 5 to 7 years, however long it was. And then there was 5 or so years that you were nomading, right? Unstructured.
Yeah.
Those 5 or so years, the last 5 or so years, how have you been?
And I'm not sure it was 5 because I did get my home base at the end of 2024. So it was really only 3 full-time digital nomading years, I would say.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense. And then in those years, how do you afford your life and structure your life as a nomad? And the question is also in 2 parts, because you have a home base, right? So do you have a lot of location-based clients in the home base, and does it benefit you? Or is the fact that you have a home base solely for the purpose of connecting with your family and your people and having a home?
Yeah. So when I was digital nomading for those 3 years, I did not have a home base other than, my parents let me use their address for mailing. And they checked my mail, and I stored all my things in their basement.
Thanks, parents.
Thank you, Mom and Dad. So it was quite affordable, the traveling, without that home base requirement. And I did long-term stays, which you can get quite discounted. If you're staying in an Airbnb for over a month, you can get even a 20% discount sometimes. I stayed in places that had a kitchen, which can seem more expensive at the outset because, that's extra space. But then I was able to do, the majority of my cooking and eating from the grocery store. I wasn't eating out. And so you put that on top of the long-term housing discount, and, those numbers always worked out better for me. Or even to choose a place to be a mini home base, to be for 3 months, have a spot in Lisbon and then, fly a few times to Spain, that worked out as well. And so I was fully remote. My clients weren't based anywhere I was. It was just all online. Now that I have a home base in DC, I still keep it that way. I moved to DC, or I established a home base in DC solely for the personal aspect of my life. Yeah.
What a flex.
Thank you.
It is a flex, right? Do you feel like it's a flex? It seems like a flex from my perspective.
That I have a home base, or that I don't need to be anywhere for my business?
That you have a home, both, that you can afford a home base, that you can maintain a home base, that you can still travel, and that the only reason you have a home base is not for financial benefit.
Yeah.
It's for personal benefit.
Yeah. I guess when you put it that way,
it's a flex.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud. I'm in a good position.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
And how did you build your business? How did it come to this point?
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm one of those people where COVID really changed their lives. I graduated with my master's in London in January 2020. My student visa was up sometime around there. And so I flew out of London a few days before the borders shut in March 2020.
Goodness.
I think it was March or May. And so the original plan after grad school was just to be with my parents for a few months while I got a job, probably in corporate, right? And then I would just move wherever that job was. right? Because that's what you do your first job out of
Normal,
school.
right?
Yeah.
It's what the people do.
But then with COVID, all of that kind of just went out the window. I was like, what do I do? A lot of the publishing jobs are in New York. I don't want to go to New York, even if I can land a job, you know, and no one was hiring then anyway. So
Yeah.
it's like everything
Jobs
was
under the down low.
yeah, everything was just so up in the air. So I said, well, as long as I don't have any living expenses, I don't have any overhead, I'm going to try to start freelancing because that will give me short-term income while I figure it out. You know, I can do half my time on job applications and I can do half my time on the freelancing. And then the freelancing worked out so well that I just never did the job applications.
Why did it work out well?
I think it was a time, you know, maybe COVID helped there be more online jobs for editing. I think I had a unique skill set to offer. So I think there was just a lot of overlapping elements. Another thing I think is at the time, a lot of businesses were transitioning to having editing out of house, which was actually a problem that I had run into before I went back to school, before I went back to grad school. And I was looking for jobs out of college as I would go through this interview process, right? Only to be told at the end that they were freelancing it, right? If it was whatever it was, if I was applying to be an in-house copywriter or an in-house copy editor, they were still so unsure of what they were doing that they were having interviews for a full-time in-house position.
That they actually wanted to freelance.
Right. But of course, right out of college, I didn't know how to freelance. I was still thinking about going back to school anyway. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to get myself some more skills, right? Get myself another degree. So then when I tried the same thing, I entered it from the freelancing perspective, and that was much more successful. You know, companies at that point, it had been like 2 years, and they were sure that this was something that they wanted to freelance, you know, to outsource.
And you saw the trend and you jumped on it.
Yeah. Well, looking back, I can say that that's the trend, but I'm not sure at that point that I saw the trend. It was just what I wanted to do. I always wanted to edit manuscripts.
Okay.
It was just that before I thought I would have to do it through a company. And then at that point, I realized, no, I don't need a company. I can do what I've always wanted to do by myself. I can be self-employed and do what I've always wanted to do.
It's very inspiring. Last question, because we're actually running out of time.
Oh, no.
I know, no. Do you feel like you got lucky?
I feel like timing-wise, I got lucky for sure.
How so?
Like I said, being able to start a business when I had no overhead, when I had like the safety net of living with my parents, that was, I think, extremely good timing. And it's not necessarily like I was waiting for that timing or I saw it. It was just like, okay, there was this opportunity and I took it to try something new and to take a risk when I wasn't in a risky position, right? And I think, though, that I'm lucky to have been in a non-risky position during COVID, you know, or even outside of COVID. I think there's so many people that live in risky positions, you know? So like I said, I think I'm lucky to have never been in a risky position and therefore to be able to take risks, you know?
And what's the connection between the luck and the risk?
I think that probably there's an inverse direct correlation, you know, the safer you are, the more risks you can take, you know, as long as you see them for opportunities, as long as, you know, you have a non-risk area to go back to, whether that's a parent's house, whether that's a large savings nest egg, you know, I think, you know, one directly leads to the other. If you want it to,
Yeah. And do you think it was do you think you manufactured any of that luck, or do you think it just fell into you?
It's a good question. I think that I was born with a lot of luck, for sure. Like, call it privilege or call it luck, whatever you want. But I still think that you have to capitalize on opportunities. And that doesn't necessarily mean recognizing them for the opportunities that they are at the time. It just means that you're willing to experiment, to try something new, to not necessarily know what's going to happen to you next month. So I think that's the manufactured bit, or the part that comes from the other qualities that you've developed, But yeah, I think there is a mix for sure.
Wow. Honestly, I think it's from the conversation that we've had. I thought a lot of it was manufactured. Like, you saw the opportunities and you saw what the world was telling you, and you took things. It sounds like you took things in a good way. Like, you didn't go to New York and get the job there, and you actively, you grew up and you started talking to people about your travels in order to build that connection with them, so much so that you can now live with them in DC, and you've built that whole thing for yourself. A lot of people would come to these individual hurdles and just freeze, like on one of them.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's very inspiring. Anyway, it was very inspiring to talk to you, Kristen.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I loved our
This was
conversation.
great.
Yeah.
It went really quickly.
I know, it was super fast, huh? Found it.